Hi, would you like to have more fun, more excitement, more adventure, more money, more love, more vitality in your life? Well, I have a little simple game to suggest, and this approach, which I like to call a shaman game because it works best when you play with it, if you're approaching it like a child, and if you find a way to do what I suggest that is natural and organic and easy for you to do, so that it becomes a game, truly a game that you like to play. And I guarantee if you play this game for just 3 days, you will have a major breakthrough into a new level of allowing, abundance, connection, spirit, love, abundant, whatever you'd like. And probably many more. The key is to play this game with absolutely every experience that you have, with every object you encounter, with every opportunity you have, all day, every day. Now, of course, at times we're not going to remember we're playing this new game, and we'll go to default. What is our default setting? Our default setting is to see the world as an objective, separate, solid reality. Our default setting, the way we're programmed, we're conditioned, is to see the surface appearance of things, that this is all there is. Black and white, male, female, solid, fluid, whatever. And this game is playing with your perception, playing with your attitude, playing with the way you're choosing to interact and sense and feel and look at things, so that you begin to be able to sense, feel, and see and know what's behind the surface, behind the scenes. I'm going to use the word sense mostly. And when I say sense, it's using all 5 senses as well as the 6th sense, or other people list even greater senses, but any senses above the 5 senses, like intuition, telepathy, clairvoyance, all those aspects of our higher self, our true self, that can know things, sense things beyond the programming, beyond the conditioning. Because basically, in a way, you could say we're hypnotized. Lovingly, really, by culture, by our parents, by society, by TV, by school, and they're saying this is the way it is. And when we're babies, when we're sensing a world of shape and form and color and sensation, our environment, our culture begins to frame that for us and say this is a tree, this is a person, this is this way, this is that way. And we start to have that habit, that routine. Basically, we're hypnotized. There's wonderful experiments, you can read about thousands of them, where they presented a group of people with an idea, a notion of what most people experience in a room. For example, one classic one is they told these people, well, they actually had them just overhear conversations of other people, that there were no red books in this library. And so when they went into this library, they were asked to find all the red books. Now, they had just spent 20 minutes in a casual group of people who just happened to mention they couldn't find any red books, among a lot of other things they said about the library. So the people went in there, and none of the 20 people could find any red books. And they all reported there's no red books in this library. Of course, when they went back in, when they were told the experiment and what, that they were set up to perceive the absence of red books, when they went back in, the same library right away, they went in and realized, oh my God, every 10th book is a red book. But they literally didn't see it. So I'm sure you've seen this phenomenon other places in your life. What's fun about this game is it pierces through the veil, the perceptual filter of all the programming, all the ways that we've been taught to only see what's on the surface of life, what we've been conditioned, programmed to see, only what our default programming, perceptual filters allow in. And so these questions I'm going to suggest that you ask help to pierce that veil, to make a crack in your world. And what's really fun, even though it's really helpful to do this with every moment you can, with every object you can. Everything you feel is separate or solid. As you play with it, you only need one experience of piercing the veil, one experience of sensing, feeling, knowing that there's something else behind the scenes going on energetically, spiritually, vibrationally. And when you have that one experience, that's called a satori experience, an awakening experience. It's awakening to your true self. And once you're in there, you haven't just perceived beyond that particular piece of perceptual programming or block or filter, but you've actually popped into the world of infinite possibility, of sensing the real nature of everything. And once you're in there, you begin to sense and know all kinds of other things that will play out in the rest of your life, and you'll start to sense a deeper meaning, a deeper reality. You'll start to have the kind of experiences you might have always wanted, like sensing spiritual beings, guides, loved ones on the other side, our natural spiritual abilities, clairvoyance, clairaudience, moving objects, knowing things, telepathy, getting in touch with our future self, all those natural spiritual abilities. This opens the door for them. Just one experience. So I invite you to play with this as a child. Find a way I'll ask you these questions. They're really all the same question, but ask in several different ways, because one way of asking these questions might fit one situation. Another way might appeal more to you. So I'll ask you these questions and then have fun with it. The basic question is, if I were to experience this particular object or this particular situation or person or place in a new and different way, what would that be? Where would my attention go? And at that point, you let go and let yourself be guided by your own internal intuition, internal guides, higher self, external guides, however you allow your observation, your noticing, your knowingness, your attention to be guided, and is dropping into a natural sense of letting go and letting your own connection with the universe guide you to a new perception, a new alternative option, something deeper. Now again, as I said, you might sense this, you might also just feel it, you might see it, or you might know it. We all have a different way of sensing our way through our life. And it's the same way with finding an opening, a portal. So if you were to notice objects that you come across, trees, books, your own body, other people, if you were to notice these objects as energy, as movement, flow, if you were to sense or feel on some level that there's some movement there, the truth is we're actually always moving. Everything is moving energy, spiraling, moving energy. And even though we might not be trained visually to see this detail or to see this kind of movement, our heart knows, our intuition knows. On some level, we do sense it because we also are fluid, flowing, moving energy. So this is about simply asking the question, taps you into your heart, into the field of your true self, source, essence, and from there, you start to sense the reality, the true nature, the energetic, fluid nature of things. Another way you can ask the question is, if I were to see this object, this solid, separate object, as fluid, flexible, malleable, soft, changing in some way. One way I felt it, every once in a while people will say, I feel the earth move under my feet. I feel like the floor isn't solid. I feel like it's undulating or waving. Well, in those moments, you actually are feeling that because the floor and the earth is actually moving. So at that moment, my feeling is that people are actually tapping into a more clear and accurate sense of the true nature of the universe. That it's a flowing wave of energy. And whatever happens, and usually it's at a point of heightened awareness or joy or fun or play, and we'll say, I see the walls moving. I see things that ordinarily are supposed to be viewed and perceived as solid and separate and rigid and status quo and stable, we start to sense that there's something different about it. And that's all that's necessary. Not to quantify it or define it or evaluate it, and definitely not to explain it. Just simply noticing. But the difference in this game is acknowledging, I'm sensing something is going on here. Another way you can ask is just to ask that question. If I were to notice something new and different or moving behind the scenes, that I can't necessarily see visually, that I can't necessarily feel viscerally, but if I were just to open up to the possibility, if I were willing to open up to the possibility that there's something behind the appearance, beneath what I'm seeing, that there's another reality there, or something deeper or more alive, what would it be? And then let go and let yourself be guided. Just let go. You don't need to do anything else. And over the course of the next few hours and days, new and different experiences will come into your life. And also a greater flow of possibility, more adventure, love, opportunities, new invitations, more money. So as you play with these questions, you don't need to do anything other than pose the question. The question is like a prayer. It's a request. It's also an intention to see and feel and sense your universe differently. And all these forms of the same question have in common is they are creating you, choosing each moment to be fresh and new with the universe. Another way you could say the question is, if I were to approach this object or person or situation with an open mind, an empty mind, like Zen, a Zen mind, an empty mind, as a child without expectation, playfully, allowingly, if I were to approach this situation in a fresh, new way, with a blank slate, a blank mind, what would I experience? What would I notice? What would I sense, feel, or see? And then let go and just move on with your life, because that opens the door, and then the universe will give you more and more very clear examples of what you've been asking for. Another way you can ask it is, if I were to sense this object, to hold this object, to feel or see this object as a hologram, like in Star Wars and Star Trek and in other movies that you see sort of like a ghost-like phantom appear, princess, I forget her name, but the princess, and as these holograms appear, you're seeing more of an energy spiral, an energy construct. Another cool visual cinematic way that this has been presented is in several movies, Terminator, I believe it's Terminator 1 and 2, where people turn into liquid, like liquid mercury. And so there's a solid person there, but then that person turns into kind of a thick metallic fluid. And then they morph or change. Morph means form, so their form changes. So you can take whatever reference from your life that you enjoy, that's playful, childlike, and apply it. One way that this is done a lot in workshops and with people is to just sit and you look into another person's eyes. And if you play with that and just get empty and just notice, all of a sudden their face starts to move and change. You start to see other faces, male, female, dark-skinned, light-skinned, blonde, brunette. You start to see ancient figures, other beings. You begin to see animals. And this is the same idea. You're allowing yourself to feel, sense, and see more of what's there. You can also ask, if I were to see a deeper dimension, another dimension, a parallel universe in this moment, of this room, of this person, what would I notice? What would I see? What would I feel? And realize at first, these awarenesses can come at a very, very subtle level. And the more you acknowledge the very, very subtle distinctions that you sense, like I sense something's different, I couldn't put my finger on it, I couldn't describe it, but I sense something has changed, something's different. I'm feeling deeper into something. I can feel that there's something going on behind the scenes. That's all that's necessary to make a crack in your world. And just acknowledge that you notice that. And as you play with this more, you're noticing, you're sensing, you're seeing, you're feeling will get more clear, more distinct. And then one final way you can ask this question is sort of like the ultimate program breaker, the ultimate ghostbuster, the ultimate doorway or portal, is to look at the space between objects. We're taught, or we're programmed, we're conditioned to feel that there's emptiness between objects. And we're trained to look only at objects, people, places, things, but instead of looking and feeling and sensing into the empty space between. So just like God, Spirit exists, infinity exists between thoughts, between feelings, between sounds, also between objects. If you start to notice, look at the space between two objects, especially out in nature. It seems to be very easy for people to do this, but also inside. And you just start noticing spaces, the empty space of a room, so-called empty space of the room, the space between twigs, the space between a chair and the couch. You notice a lot of animals, cats and dogs and other animals, will be looking like they're staring into empty space. Well, they're seeing and feeling and sensing things. So if I were to notice something about this empty space, what would it be? And then just let go. You don't need to necessarily get any feedback at that moment. And don't be discouraged if you don't sense anything at all. Just keep asking this question, because our prayers are always answered, and the universe will keep sending experiences to you until you start to sense, feel, or notice, whoa, yes, I'm seeing, sensing, feeling something behind the appearance. So have fun with this. I'll see you next time. Bye.